Real estate billionaire Marcus Reid taking the subway was a disaster scenario. But that morning, while waiting on the dirty platform, the sight he saw on the bench next to him would turn his perfect world upside down, a tired woman and her little girl sleeping in her arms. And those girls' eyes would remind Marcus of his biggest regret from 14 years ago. The morning sun cast long shadows through the windows of Reid Properties headquarters as Marcus Reid stood in his corner office, phone pressed to his ear, watching his personal driver wave apologetically from the street below. "What do you mean the Bentley won't start?" Marcus said, his voice carrying the edge that made his employees nervous. At 40, Marcus had built Reid Properties into Manhattan's most powerful real estate empire, transforming abandoned buildings into luxury developments worth billions. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reid," came James's voice through the phone. "The engine just died. I've called for a tow truck, but it'll be at least 2 hours." Marcus checked his platinum watch, 8:15 a.m. The Nakamura meeting was at 9:30 downtown, a $200 million commercial development deal that had taken 8 months to arrange. The Japanese investors were notorious for their punctuality and would view any delay as disrespect. "Call a taxi," Marcus ordered. "I tried, sir. There's some kind of traffic incident on 5th Avenue. Every cab in the area is stuck." Marcus felt his perfectly orchestrated morning crumbling. He'd built his success on precision, on controlling every variable. Unexpected complications were for other people who didn't plan as meticulously as he did. "What about the subway?" James suggested hesitantly. The subway. Marcus hadn't used public transportation since college, 20 years ago. The idea of cramming into a metal tube with strangers, breathing recycled air, touching surfaces that thousands of hands had contaminated, it was almost unthinkable. But the Nakamura deal was too important to miss. "Fine," Marcus said through gritted teeth. "I'll take the damn subway." 30 minutes later, Marcus descended into the 42nd Street station wearing his $5,000 Italian suit and handcrafted leather shoes, feeling like an alien visiting another planet. The underground air was thick with the smell of coffee, exhaust, and too many people in too small a space. He studied the subway map with the same intensity he applied to financial projections, plotting the most efficient route to downtown. The platform was crowded with the usual morning rush, commuters in various states of wakefulness, street musicians competing with train announcements, the organized chaos of New York trying to get to work. Marcus positioned himself away from the crowd, checking his phone obsessively. The Nakamura presentation was loaded on his tablet, ready for one final review during the train ride. Everything was still manageable. That's when he saw them. On a metal bench near the platform's edge, partially hidden behind a support pillar, a woman sat with a small girl curled up in her lap. Both were clearly homeless, their clothes worn and layered, a shopping cart nearby holding their possessions in garbage bags. Marcus's first instinct was to look away. He'd perfected the art of not seeing New York's homeless population, moving through the city in his protective bubble of wealth and success. They were a reality he acknowledged intellectually but never engaged with personally. But something about this particular scene stopped him from turning away. The woman appeared to be in her early 30s, with long brown hair that might have been beautiful if it were clean. Her face, even in sleep, carried an exhaustion that seemed to go deeper than just being tired. She held the girl protectively, even unconsciously, creating a small pocket of safety in the harsh environment of the subway station. The little girl, maybe 6 years old, had dark hair that fell in soft waves around her face. Her clothes were clearly second-hand but clean, suggesting a mother who maintained dignity despite circumstances. But it was when the girl stirred and briefly opened her eyes that Marcus felt his world shift. Those eyes, large, dark green, with an intelligence that seemed too mature for her age, were identical to the ones he saw in the mirror every morning. The shape of her face, the way she tilted her head slightly as she looked around, even the small dimple in her chin that appeared when she frowned, it was like looking at a childhood photo of himself. Marcus stood frozen on the platform, commuters flowing around him like water around a stone. His rational mind immediately began cataloging reasons why this resemblance was coincidental. Millions of people lived in New York. Genetic similarities between strangers weren't unusual. But his heart knew better. The approaching train's rumble vibrated through the platform, growing louder as it emerged from the tunnel. Marcus should have been positioning himself for optimal boarding, reviewing his presentation notes, focusing on the most important meeting of his quarter. Instead, he found himself walking toward the bench. "Mama," the little girl whispered, gently shaking the woman's shoulder. "The train's coming." The woman's eyes opened slowly, revealing the same green eyes as her daughter. When she saw Marcus approaching, tall, clearly wealthy, wearing clothes that cost more than she probably saw in months, her expression immediately became guarded. "We're not bothering anyone," she said quietly, pulling her daughter closer. "We'll move if you need the bench." "No," Marcus said, his voice coming out rougher than intended. You don't need to move." Up close, the woman's face triggered a memory that Marcus had spent years trying to bury. The curve of her lips, the way she instinctively protected her child, the defiant tilt of her chin despite their obvious vulnerability, it all felt hauntingly familiar. "Emma," he said suddenly, the name escaping before he could stop it. The woman's eyes widened in shock. "Marcus?" Time seemed to stop around them. The train pulled into the station with a screech of brakes and hiss of opening doors, but neither Marcus nor Emma moved. 14 years collapsed into nothing as they stared at each other across a chasm of different choices and lost time. "Oh my God," Emma whispered. "Marcus Reid." The little girl looked between the adults, sensing the charged atmosphere without understanding it. "Mama, who is this man?" Emma's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, fear, pain, and something that might have been hope. This is an old friend, Lily. Someone Mama knew a long time ago." Lily. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Emma had always said if she had a daughter, she'd name her Lily, after the flowers that had been blooming the day they first met in college. "Doors are closing," came the automated announcement. Marcus should have gotten on that train. The Nakamura meeting, his carefully planned morning, his controlled life, all of it waited for him downtown. But looking at Emma and Lily, he felt rooted to the platform. The train pulled away, taking his perfect schedule with it. "You missed your train," Emma observed, though she made no move to leave the bench. "I'll catch the next one," Marcus replied, though they both knew he wouldn't. Lily had fully awakened now, studying Marcus with the unfiltered curiosity of childhood. "Are you rich?" she asked with startling directness. "Lily." Emma scolded gently, but Marcus actually smiled, the first genuine smile he'd worn in months. "Yes," he told Lily honestly. "I suppose I am." "Cool," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Mama says rich people built all the tall buildings." "Did you build any tall buildings?" "A few," Marcus replied, still unable to process that he was having this conversation. Emma watched this exchange with an expression Marcus couldn't read. "You always said you'd build something important," she said quietly. The casual reference to their shared past opened floodgates Marcus had sealed years ago. Emma Chen, brilliant, passionate, determined to change the world through social work. They'd met during his senior year at Columbia, her junior year, and for 8 months, she'd been his entire universe. "Emma, what happened to you?" Marcus asked gently. "How did you?" He gestured vaguely at their situation. Emma's face hardened slightly. "Life happened, Marcus. Life after you decided I wasn't worth fighting for." The accusation stung because it was accurate. Marcus remembered their last fight, screaming match in his dorm room about his family's expectations, about the predetermined path his father had laid out for him in the family business. "My father will cut me off completely if I marry someone from your background," he'd said, the words feeling like ash in his mouth even as he spoke them. "Then choose," Emma had replied simply. "Choose love or choose money. But don't ask me to wait around while you decide if I'm worth more than your trust fund." He'd chosen money. And Emma had disappeared from his life the next day. "I looked for you," Marcus said quietly. "After graduation, I tried to find you." "Did you?" Emma's voice carried years of hurt. "Because I was right here in the city." Same social work program, same dreams. Just not in the places rich boys from Greenwich look. Another train arrived and departed. Then another. Marcus had stopped checking his phone, stopped thinking about the Nakamura meeting. The only reality that mattered was this bench, these two people who had somehow crashed back into his carefully controlled existence. "Mama, I'm hungry," Lily said softly. Emma immediately began digging through her bag, a worn canvas tote that had seen better years. She pulled out a small package of crackers and a juice box, clearly the last of their food. "Here, baby. Just a little bit for now." Marcus watched Emma break the crackers into small pieces, making them last longer, and felt something crack in his chest. "When did you last eat?" he asked Emma. "We're fine," she said quickly, defensively. "I wasn't judging. I was asking." Emma studied his face, perhaps looking for the boy she'd once loved beneath the powerful man he'd become. "Yesterday morning," she admitted finally. Without a word, Marcus stood and walked to the coffee cart at the far end of the platform. He returned with coffee for Emma, chocolate milk for Lily, and an assortment of pastries and sandwiches. "You don't have to," Emma began. "Please," Marcus interrupted. "Let me do this." As Lily eagerly bit into a chocolate croissant, her face lighting up with joy, Marcus felt a profound shame. Here was a child who looked exactly like him, eating a simple pastry as if it were the finest delicacy. "Emma," he said carefully, "how old is Lily?" Emma's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "She'll be 7 next month." Marcus did the math quickly. 7 years old meant she'd been born about 6.5 years after their breakup. But the resemblance was impossible to ignore. "Is she," he began, then stopped, afraid of the answer. "Is she what, Marcus? Is she mine?" Emma set down her coffee with hands that trembled slightly. "What kind of question is that?" "The kind a man asks when he's looking at a little girl who has his eyes, his chin, his—" Marcus gestured helplessly. "Emma, she looks exactly like I did at that age. Lots of children. Not like this. Not this exact." Lily, oblivious to the adult conversation, had moved on to examining Marcus's expensive watch. "It's shiny," she announced. "Does it tell time in different countries?" "Yes," Marcus answered automatically, his focus remaining on Emma. "Emma, please. I need to know." Emma was quiet for a long moment, watching her daughter explore Marcus's watch with innocent fascination. "After you left for your family business in London," she said finally, "I found out I was pregnant." The platform seemed to tilt beneath Marcus's feet. "Pregnant? I tried to call you. Multiple times. Your assistant always said you were unavailable, that you'd call back. You never did." Marcus remembered those calls now, messages he'd ignored because hearing Emma's voice was too painful, because he'd convinced himself a clean break was better for both of them. "I didn't know," he whispered. "By the time I realized you weren't going to call back, I'd made my choice. I would have the baby and raise her myself. I didn't need your money or your guilt. But Emma, if I had known, would it have changed anything?" Emma challenged. "Would you have chosen differently? Or would you have just felt trapped?" The question hung between them like a physical presence. Marcus wanted to say yes, of course he would have chosen differently. But the truth was more complicated. The 26-year-old Marcus, desperate for his father's approval and terrified of losing his inheritance, might have made the same cowardly choice. "What happened after?" Marcus asked quietly. "You were brilliant, Emma. You had plans, dreams of changing the world through social work." Emma's laugh held no humor. "Dreams don't pay for diapers, Marcus. I tried to finish my degree while pregnant, but morning sickness made it impossible. I had to drop out, get whatever job I could find." She gestured to their current situation with bitter irony. "Turns out single mothers without degrees don't have many options. I worked as a waitress until Lily was born, then retail jobs that would let me bring her sometimes. But childcare costs, rent, food, it's a math problem that never works out. Marcus listened with growing horror and guilt. While he'd been building his empire, accumulating wealth beyond most people's imagination, Emma had been struggling to survive, raising their daughter alone. "How long have you been?" He gestured vaguely at their homeless state. 3 months, Emma said quietly. "I got laid off when the store closed. Couldn't make rent. The shelter system is overcrowded, so sometimes we stay in the subway stations. They're safer than the streets." "Jesus, Emma. 3 months?" "Mama doesn't like that word," Lily chimed in, looking up from the watch she'd been examining. "She says there are better ways to express surprise." Despite everything, Marcus found himself smiling at the gentle correction. Even in their dire circumstances, Emma was still raising Lily with values and manners. "You're right, Lily. I apologize. I was just surprised." "That's okay. Mama says everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is learning from them." The simple wisdom hit Marcus harder than any business rival's attack ever had. Here was a 6-year-old child, living in subway stations, teaching him about forgiveness and growth. "Emma," he said urgently, "this can't continue. Let me help. Let me." "No." Emma's voice was firm. "I won't be your charity case, Marcus. I won't let you ease your conscience by throwing money at the problem you walked away from. This isn't about my conscience. This is about—" Marcus gestured toward Lily. "This is about her. Her name is Lily," Emma said sharply. "And she survived 6 years without you. We'll figure out 6 more." "Survived isn't living," Marcus replied. "You both deserve better than this. We deserve a lot of things. But we've learned to work with what we have." Another train arrived, and this time Marcus felt the pull of his normal life. His phone had been buzzing constantly, missed calls from his assistant, angry emails from the Nakamura team, urgent messages about rescheduling. But looking at Lily, who had fallen asleep again in Emma's arms, her small face peaceful despite their harsh surroundings, Marcus realized something fundamental had shifted inside him. All those missed calls, all those urgent business matters, none of it felt important anymore. "I have a proposition," he said quietly. Emma's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "I'm listening. Give me a chance to know her. To be, I don't know, part of her life somehow." "And what's in it for you, Marcus? A feel-good story to tell at charity galas?" The accusation stung, partly because it wasn't entirely unfair. "What's in it for me is knowing my daughter," he said simply. "She's not your daughter," Emma replied quickly. "You're a stranger who happens to share her DNA. Then let me be more than a stranger." Emma was quiet for several minutes, watching the constant flow of commuters around them. "What are you really asking for, Marcus?" "I'm asking for the chance to be the father I should have been from the beginning. I'm asking for the opportunity to help provide for Lily's future, her education, her opportunities, her dreams." "And what about us? What about the fact that we're homeless right now?" Marcus pulled out his wallet and removed a business card, writing something on the back. "This is the address of a furnished apartment I own in Brooklyn. It's been empty for months. Move in today. No strings attached." Emma stared at the card as if it might explode. "I can't." "You can. And you will. Because whatever happened between us, whatever mistakes I made, Lily doesn't deserve to spend another night on subway benches." "Marcus, this is too much. I can't just—" "Mama?" Lily's sleepy voice interrupted the argument. "Are we going to have a real bid tonight?" Emma's resolve crumbled as she looked at her daughter's hopeful face. "Maybe, baby. Maybe we are." The furnished apartment in Brooklyn was modest by Marcus's standards but luxurious by Emma and Lily's current situation. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and most importantly, safety and warmth. Marcus had arranged for groceries to be delivered and for a trust fund to be established in Lily's name, ensuring her education would be secure regardless of what happened between him and Emma. "This is temporary," Emma insisted as they stood in the living room of their new home. "Until I can find work and get back on my feet." "Take all the time you need," Marcus replied, watching Lily explore her new bedroom with wonder. Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself reorganizing his entire life around visits with Lily. He moved meetings to accommodate school pickup times, canceled business trips to attend her school play, and discovered the profound joy of hearing about 6-year-old concerns and triumphs. "She's remarkable," he told Emma one evening as they watched Lily do homework at the kitchen table. "Her intelligence, her resilience, she's stronger than most adults I know." "She had to be strong," Emma replied quietly. "She didn't have the luxury of being just a kid." The guilt in her voice made Marcus's chest tight. "That's going to change now. She can be a kid now." Emma smiled, the first genuinely happy smile he'd seen from her. "She likes you, you know. She asks about you when you're not here." "I like her too. More than I thought possible." "Marcus," Emma said carefully, "what are we doing here? What do you want from this?" It was a fair question, and Marcus had been asking himself the same thing. "I want to be her father. I want to make up for 6 years of missed birthdays and scraped knees and bedtime stories. I want to give her every opportunity one can." "And what about us?" Emma asked. "What about you and me?" Marcus looked at this woman who had once been his everything, who had raised their daughter with love and strength despite impossible circumstances. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I'd like to find out." 6 months later, Marcus stood in the backyard of a house in Westchester, not a mansion, but a real home with a swing set and a garden where Lily could play safely. Emma had enrolled in an online program to finish her social work degree, while Lily thrived in an excellent school where she could just be a 7-year-old. "Daddy, push me higher," Lily called from the swing, the word daddy still creating a warm glow in Marcus's chest every time he heard it. "Not too high," Emma called from the porch where she was grading papers for her summer internship at a local family services agency. Marcus smiled at the domestic scene, so different from the sterile perfection of his old penthouse existence. This was messy and chaotic and absolutely perfect. "Emma," he said that evening as they tucked Lily into her own bed in her own room, "I want to ask you something." "What's that?" "I want to ask if you think we could try again. Not because of Lily, but because I never stopped loving you. I just lost my way for a while." Emma was quiet for a long moment. 14 years is a long time, Marcus. We're different people now." "We are. But maybe we're better people. Maybe we've learned what actually matters." "And what matters?" Marcus gestured around Lily's room, her drawings on the walls, her books scattered on the floor, the peaceful sound of her breathing as she slept. "This. Family. Love. Being present for the people who need us." Emma smiled. "Those are good answers. Is that a yes?" "That's a let's see where this goes." As they walked down the hallway toward their separate bedrooms, they were taking things slowly, rebuilding trust along with their relationship. Marcus reflected on the chain of events that had brought them here. A broken car. A missed train. A chance encounter on a subway platform. Sometimes the best things in life happened when your perfect plans fell apart. 2 years later, Marcus stood on another subway platform, this one downtown near his new office. Reid Properties had evolved under his changed priorities, focusing on affordable housing and community development rather than just luxury projects. "Daddy, is that our train?" Lily asked, now 8 and confident in the city in ways that amazed her parents. "That's our train," Marcus confirmed, watching the approaching subway car with none of the distaste he'd once felt. Emma squeezed his hand as they boarded with the morning commuters. She was now a licensed social worker again, running programs for homeless families. Marcus had discovered that his business skills were incredibly valuable when applied to social good rather than just profit. "I love train days," Lily announced as they found seats. "It's more fun than the car." Marcus smiled, remembering how horrified his younger self would have been at the idea of preferring public transportation. But that was before he understood that the most important journeys weren't about avoiding other people, they were about connecting with them. As the train pulled away from the platform, Marcus caught Emma's eye and saw his own contentment reflected there. They'd built something beautiful from the wreckage of their younger mistakes, a family, a purpose, a life that mattered. Next stop, Brooklyn, came the automated announcement. Next stop, home, Marcus thought. The home he'd never expected to find on a subway platform, in the eyes of a homeless little girl who turned out to be his greatest treasure. Sometimes the train you're not planning to take is exactly the one that leads you where you belong. Sometimes getting lost is the only way to find what you've been missing.